Hi everyone, this is Killshot from 99 Gaming, and this is The Walking Dead Season 9, Episode 2, Shocking Spoilers. So we had a really good chat last night, a lot of fun with each and every one of you guys, and I don't think we quite finished the conversation. This won't be as much play-by-play of the spoilers that we did last night, but we will pick a couple of the main events, and we're going to dig a little bit deeper like we always do. Before we get started and get too much into this video, want to give a shout out to Valar with the super chat saying hello 99 Army, Kill, Steph, Emmy, Kale, Sweet Tommy, sponsors, patrons, and of course all the super chatters. Also another nice shout out to Vicky Jack, our most recent Patreon. And looks like we got a couple birthday shout-outs to get to as well. I think it is Jen Wright and Liz Burnett. Thank you both. Hopefully you guys are having a great time with the channel. And just love being here with you guys. I love this picture because, am I wrong in saying this? But this picture kind of reminds me of what a lot of us do every night. I mean, isn't that kind of like us hanging out by the campfire, just talking about The Walking Dead? If the world wasn't such a virtual world, if it wasn't microphones and these conversations, I got a feeling all of us would be, it'd be a big-ass campfire because there's a whole lot of us that hang out in the 99 Army. But it would be fun just to sort of hang out, and they're having a good time. We will transition into that. I do want to say, it's not all doom and gloom with The Walking Dead. I keep seeing these second lowest premiere episode ever, and it's almost as if, look, they're not calculating the app views, they're not calculating the early premiere. The Walking Dead is alive and well. Case in point, we do a lot of theories, as you know. We've been talking Season 9 for like 4 months, so in all honesty, we've got a lot of live streams out there, but we talked, all of us here, and this was something I did mention during the video, and it was one of those moments. I remember when we first talked about it, it was like, you know what? I think this would be epic. And I was talking about how Rick's death and seeing the world through Rick's eyes would be epic. And I think there were a lot of people sort of taken aback. They were like, wow, that would be a little bit different. So Saturday morning, just put the video up there and talked about what we talked about just for a couple minutes. 65,000 people have watched that video just in the last couple days. It was the top trending Walking Dead video on YouTube, and it was kind of our theory, something we put together. And whether I guide it, whether, you guys add to it, or whether it's your theory and I add to it, whatever the case may be, for a show that people are predicting is just fading and dying, for that many people to listen to our theory and our projections is pretty awesome stuff. So, I don't see that there's a decrease in less people talking about it. I actually see more people joining our chats, more people getting involved, more people joining our fan book page, and it seems like the community is growing. Now, who knows what the lifespan is? We might be on this roller coaster for another year, another 2 years, or we might be here talking about The Walking Dead for another 10 years. The only thing I'll say is I'm down for as long as you guys are down. So, as long as you guys are willing to hang out and talk about it, we will get together and discuss it, break it down, and do the most in-depth analysis hopefully that you'll find anywhere and everywhere. Also, I do want to say, just thoughts and prayers are going out to anybody that happened to be, hopefully people got out of the panhandle of Florida. I mean, when you see that stuff there, you got to take it seriously. I have relatives all throughout Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, all the way, through there. There's obviously serious weather concerns. They're not in serious damage, a path of serious damage, but there is flooding and potential tornadoes. And please, we don't want to lose any viewers that way. I mean, we want you to be smart and take care of your families. All right, okay, that's kind of my speech, getting this thing going. Let's talk about the spoilers. Let's talk about the upcoming show. It is the bridge. We know there's so much in that Comic-Con trailer that happened with the bridge, and we might, of the good theories we have out there, there's a lot of theories we're wrong, and I think we can admit that. We're not going to go back and rehash all of them, but I think a lot of what we saw in the Comic-Con trailer will be almost fully exhausted by this week. And what I like to do is when we see an episode, I go back and it's like, remember we saw Enid? And that kind of look on Enid's face? Well, we've seen that. We know where that comes out now. And a lot of those scenes are going to be completely exhausted after this week. So there's going to be very little in that trailer that we can still go back and say, is this the moment that Rick died? But I'm still going to go on record of saying that scene where he's looking at the herd and the look on his face, if we don't see that this week, I do think that is going to be part of his last episode. I don't know. It's just something about that just sort of hit a nerve with me. The Walking Dead is now kind of doing what we're doing. And this is why I really like... I have no problem with them promoting and saying Rick Grimes, final episodes and getting some interest and sort of stoking that a little bit. And in all honesty, making some money off of it. I have no problem with how much money they make off the show. In fact, I'm a fan of them making money on the show. The more money they make, I think the franchise will be around longer. But what's cool is how this year I do think they are in line with what the viewers think. And I hope that holds true all the way to Rick's exit. And it is either extremely epic death, which there's very few scenarios for that, or they're in tune with the fact that we need Rick Grimes in some capacity. Open-ended. And the reason I say that, I got three things I want to tie together, is one, the promoting the Rick Grimes final episodes. They know that's going to bring people back. But number two, we're now getting the promoting of the Maggie beast mode, right? It's like... you see these tweets, it's Lauren, and then now you see their poster up there, Maggie's in beast mode. Well, that's a lot of our discussions, and they know exactly how we feel about it. Is half the audience sees Maggie as, aggressive and take care of business, and it's like she's a mom and she's taking care of business, so, they're adding, you can do both. Now, the question that I have for you. This is not like being in public office. This is not like having a career and raising children. This is life and death. Do you think the attachment to Herschel, the bond there, do you think that's going to impact her decision making, or do you think that there could put some other people in risk because of Maggie being a mom and because of Maggie having that, not a burden, but having that responsibility that I got to take care of this guy first before anybody else? Is that going to slow her down? I mean, we know you can run fast, but if you're holding a baby, you're going to run a little bit slower. Creepy says is her number one priority. Yes, I mean, there's nothing else more important than Herschel right now. And that is a huge, huge responsibility. And as the herd grows, you can't just put him in daycare. You can't just say, hey, Jesus, Now, hey, Rick did that with Judith quite a bit, I guess. The war's going on and Rick's got babysitters abound. But I don't think as the herd becomes more of a threat, and if the Whispers were to become a threat, that Maggie's just going to trust Herschel with anybody. So, just a little food for thought in the reality of the show is I do, and I've heard them say this, the show is making an extreme conscious effort to show that women will be more empowered in the season, and rightfully so. There's no doubt, and I know we've done talks on this, and look, everybody has their opinion, and some people said, well, it's long overdue. Some people said it's not realistic. I don't know what that means, but yeah, like I said, I respect everybody's right to have an opinion. I do think you're going to see that Maggie rise to power, that Michonne rise to power. And where we used to cheer, I mean, think about this dynamic. How much we cheered Abraham. And let's be honest here for a minute. I mean, some of the coolest characters and the coolest dialogue have been given to men. It's been given to Negan. It's been given to Jerry. It's been given to Abraham. And that's what's so refreshing about Sarah on Fear the Walking Dead. But now, if we can see Rosita as maybe not the sarcasm and the jokes of Abraham, but the real awesomeness of blowing stuff up, and Rosita's always kind of had that, but she did to a degree. She was a little bit an Abraham shadow, and it's just because Abraham he got all the good lines. That's just the way it worked out. But if Rosita and Arat, I'm okay. I wasn't a big fan of Arat early on, but I'm okay with redemption. And if the two of them can be like just some enforcers, I'm totally cool with it. Thoughts on a potential tag team of explosiveness between Rosita and Arat? Are you guys cool with that? That we're gonna need some tough people. Good. Yeah, I like to see that Arat has some fans. I wasn't sure. Checking out a few comments here. And, I guess the thing is, if Rosita can forgive her, I mean, there's a lot of people that have done a lot of bad stuff. And I just think it's going to be hard to... It's going to be hard to hold grudges against all of them. I mean, there's just a lot of evil on both sides. And that Rick enforcement group, and, I know they had some pictures of people that Negan had beat down, when they went in that first satellite. But let's be honest. I mean, Rick's group went in there and they executed a lot of people. We made such a big deal about it with Glenn, but we didn't make a big deal about any of the other ones that were in there just shooting them all down. And correct me if I'm wrong. When Rick and that group of like 10 people or so went in and stormed that satellite, did any of Rick's people die in that scene? I don't think so, right? I'm not even sure even anybody was injured. I mean, it was like a clean sweep. And it was so good of a clean sweep. You know what? Heath and Tara were like, hey, we just killed a whole bunch of people. Let's get in an RV and go find some more resources. It was just like a Sunday afternoon to them. Nothing happened. And our justification of it was, I mean, at the time, we didn't even really discuss it and make that big of a deal about it. We were like, yeah, cool. Rick's taking care of business, because we thought that was Negan. We thought one of those were Negan, and Rick took care of it. And we found out they're all Negan. Jimmy's jamming with a super chat and says, I know we just covered this, but I'm so sick of Hollywood giving The Walking Dead the raspberries. I'm about done with Follywood. Jimmy, here's the thing. We know who the fans are. And as long as we support the show and we drive the dialogue and the conversation, there's always going to be a following. It's not even like a B following or a niche following or a cult following. I mean, Walking Dead is still, it has a nice fan base. It's a few million down from where it used to be, but the show's 9 seasons old. I mean, and there's so many different ways to watch it. You know what? I don't know if I've ever gotten that all in bold like that. Emily says, hi, I love you, like all in caps. Well, thank you so much, Emily. I love you too. Appreciate that. Appreciate you being here. That's like a serious introduction. And Andy deserves an Emmy. The question's going to be, is he going to deserve it based on this year's performance? Because from what I've seen in episode number 1, they definitely are not assisting him. They're really going to have to kick up the game a little bit more. It's going to have to... Look, the story was great. But I was not the biggest fan of Rick Grimes in episode number 1. Doesn't mean it's not going to be an amazing season for him. But I was a big fan of episode 1. I need Rick to change in a hurry. Is Justin going to... Justin is not going to get an Emmy. Justin is going to get the worst story in the history of The Walking Dead. It's like, we didn't even know him, and he's going to be famous quick. I would agree, Pete M., that one of Andy's... You guys got to stop. Pete, I would agree 7-1, even though I've only seen it one time. When you guys... when you do super chats, you do this, it's like my voice blushes, if that's possible. Thank you so much. I appreciate that, Sheila Mack. I love you too, Sheila. This is going to be like one big... we're all out by the fireplace, just like Carol and Ezekiel, and we're having this sentimental moment. This is what the Army's all about. Thank you. I appreciate you. So many of you were here for the full spoilers last night, and I'm not going to go through every one of them. But I do have to bring up, and warning, it's obviously in the title, shocking spoilers, so you knew there was going to be some discussion around that tonight. I know this. With all the love in this room, if the producers ever pick up the phone and call me and want me to do some animation, dialogue, or some voiceovers, then I absolutely know that they will have some fans. Because all of you are coming with me. We'll leave it at that. All right, so the major spoiler last night, and I'm going to talk about it again, I feel like is probably the Aaron. I mean, yes, it might not be the best thing that's going to happen. With Justin is going to be an awesome storyline. I think the dynamic between Jadis and Father G. But Aaron and Enid having to take action. And Aaron with the beard. Are we going full Rick clone? I mean, is that... I know we've suggested it, we've mildly discussed it, but let's make that the topic right now. I want to know your unfiltered, within reason, thoughts about Ross and Aaron's character and Rick Grimes. Lamar, comic book Rick, I mean, it does seem like it. It does seem like they're trying to give us that visual. I mean, we see it with our eyes. We start to accept it and believe it maybe in our heart. Tribute to Andrew Lincoln. So Stefanella doesn't like it. I know a lot of people don't like it. But there's also a lot of people that wanted an arm chopped off at some point. And I feel like this is a compromise. That's got to be hard to act that way. I mean, do you guys remember when Chandler used to talk about the eye patch and how hard it was to act? I mean, they're going to, obviously put some type of cap over his arm. And I don't think they're going to CGI that. That's what's going to be interesting is how do you even do that? I mean, yeah, I'm trying to visualize if we're like literally going to be looking at it and saying, wait a minute, no, his arm is a whole lot, it's the same length. I mean, it's hard to just put that, but if they green sleeve his arm, then you still, I mean, that's a lot of work. Every episode and every scene that Aaron's going to be in. I mean, if you're doing it with a minor character that's not going to be there very long, but if you're talking about a person that could be one of the leaders on the show, I mean, you got one of two options. Either you're going to go CGI with every motion he has, or you're going to, put some type of fake cap over his arm so he doesn't have an arm, but then it's going to be longer than what it was before. I mean, I'm just trying to go through all the scenarios here. It's going to be interesting. Yeah, I mean, Herschel, they did it, but it is a lot of work. And we've seen their CGI. It is not the best in the business. That I can definitely say. Yeah, I'm more inclined to think that they're going to hide it in some way instead of CGI. I mean, their CGI has been... Look, I've never went back and looked at... the CGI with Shiva got better. But even the computer-generated stuff they did this year with the water flowing... no. All right. Well, I mean, interesting. So, I'm going to float a different concept here, just for a moment. So, we've talked about Justin, and Justin's going to have a rough time. If you guys are just tuning in, Justin is going to bully Henry. Henry's going to use the stick and put him on his back. Daryl and Justin have it out twice. Justin gets exiled. And at the very end, a couple people. Now, any possibility it's Henry and somebody else, and Henry's just like a little mini murderer that just does not allow people to get over on him? I know we talked about it being the Whisperers. But I just wanted to kind of throw Henry's name out there. Any possibility? I mean, Henry doesn't take any crap. Bumblebee says it's Daryl. He's clearing. I like that. How about Lydia? Is that a possibility? Well, I mean, wouldn't it make more sense that Lydia is going to be involved before the rest of the Whispers? I mean, isn't that kind of like the comic arc? Maybe it's not exactly like that, but I mean, yeah, I mean, Storm, I don't know. I don't know if Lydia and Henry together yet, because it's only episode 2. It might be too earlier. I mean, I'm sorry, too early. But if Lydia is to be found by the group, um, maybe it is Lydia and somebody. I mean, there's 2 people involved in this, and it might be kind of our first look, and we might not know or make the correlation. The comic book fans are going to know, but the TV audience, by and large, are probably going to say, who's Lydia? Okay. Yeah, just some ideas I want to throw out there with you guys. Um, Potential Henry involvement, a little bit of poetic justice, a little bit of payback for Justin because, hey, Justin was picking on him about the whole water thing. Henry ain't going to take it. Maybe, maybe not. Lydia introduction, could happen early on. It's not going to be it. It's very unlikely to be Alpha, and I tend to take Andrew at his word because he's never lied to me personally. But in the Comic-Con interviews, and I think Walking Dead Nerd sent this to me, he was discussing that he did not know who was going to play Alpha, and he was a little bit surprised. So he knew that the storyline was out there, but didn't have all the data. And I just think that if we're going to get an Alpha introduction, then Andy would have known who that actor was going to be that was going to play her. So that interview just kind of hit home with me. I mean, either he's lying about it because he was not shy about it. So he was either just point blank lying or he really didn't know who was going to play that character, which leads me to believe that we won't get an Alpha introduction until much later. That he wasn't privy to. 11, 12, 13? Maybe 13. I mean, I knew he knew of the Whispers, but not who the character that was going to play the leader of the Whispers. I got a super chat here. So in this super chat, we got Nizar in says, "Hey Kills, love your videos." Thank you, appreciate that. And hopefully, the fact that you're here not just for the videos but for the live stream, I'm glad that you love the live streams. You like participating in it. That kind of makes my day. So how would Morgan react when Rick leaves or dies? Each scenario separately. Is there more story to tell? What do you think? How would Morgan react to a Rick death? Morgan, I think, will feel responsible if Rick does die and Morgan, we don't know. It's unlikely that Morgan is going to get there before Rick dies. The thing you have to, with the super chat, I'm pretty passionate about this. Remember, there's a 1.5-year time skip. So technically, Morgan could get back at the start of next season. But it's not likely because I think they're pretty clear that they got a brand new base and they're going to set something up there, and Morgan does not want to go back. So once we get about 2 or 3 months under our belt, I think we can put it to rest that Morgan and Rick's paths will ever cross again in a potential Rick death. And what I mean by that is, I know it's confusing. So let's say episode number 1, there's a complete change, and this is Fear the Walking Dead. There's a complete change of heart, and they're like, I'm going to be this as corny as possible as I can with this. Hey, you know what? All right, we don't want to start up this factory. I changed my mind. Let's get in the truck. Let's drive straight to Alexandria. And they have no hurricanes. They have no issues. They have no crazy women, sabotaging their water. And they go straight there. Then Morgan could, in theory, get there at the same time point that they're at right now during the 1.5 year time skip. So we know that Rick is either going to die or leave within a week's time. So, right, it's 4 weeks of television shows, but there's probably only be like a week or two of time on the show that's going to pass. So once we see 2 or 3 episodes of Fear, it's like we're going back and forth, but we got to think this out simultaneously. If Rick dies in episode 5, it's still not 100% that Morgan will not see him. But if Fear, they go through a couple of weeks to a month on Fear, then they'll never cross paths. So that is a long way of answering your question. Morgan might not even know about Rick's death for 5 years. And he definitely won't be there in time to do anything about it. Now, if Rick leaves, then all bets are off. Because if Rick leaves, there still is the potential for a Morgan and Rick reunion. And I think that's a very real possibility. I think that if Rick dies any other way than the way I described it, and you guys are mostly pretty cool with that, like, okay, yeah, that's different. That might be okay, but it still depends on how it plays out on television. I still think 90% of our audience wants Rick just to leave somehow. And if he leaves somehow, I do think that by the end of the series that the two of them will be back together in some capacity. Hopefully that provides some substance to it. David Stubetta, this is an awesome comment. I'm not picking on you, but I do have to read your comment because you're so passionate about it. And this is what I love about how I do it too. But we make this claim and then we walk it back. So David says, Rick's going to die. All the signs are pointing to it. Or, you know what? As soon as you say Rick's going to die, all signs are pointing to it, you can't say or. At that point, you need like 3 exclamation points. Because once you say, or he could be the cure and gets in a helicopter. So, yeah, we all do it. I mean, it shows you that we believe something. Emmy and I have this conversation, well, not all the time, but when we get a chance to talk. And Emmy reminded me, at least on several occasions, and said, it's like Kill said, you got to, it's a difference between going with your head and going with your heart. What does your heart tell you? Your heart tells you that Rick Grimes is going to live. But at this point, your head should be telling you he's definitely going to die. David, don't apologize. I am totally messing with you. And don't take it personally. I wasn't. Keep in mind, when you guys type comments, they're part of this video. So if you type them, I'm very likely to read them. But no, I'm not trying to be rude to you. I love the comment because I think your comment really outlines what it is that the point that we're trying to make is your head probably tells you that Rick's going to die. I mean, it's the most likely scenario. And the reason is I don't think there's a believable scenario that Rick's going to live. Not like 100% believable. This is what I mean. he could be a cure. But why would he be the cure and nobody else is? I mean, we can always make up a scenario where he's the cure. And I'm okay with him being the cure. But it's a little bit corny. He could be attacked brutally and injured and flown away. But it's a little bit hard to believe that could happen, that he could survive something like that. But it is easy to conceive that he could be surrounded by all these herd of walkers that are gathering right now. And we're seeing that happen. We're seeing that happen right before our eyes. Walkers overrunning the place and how they're manipulating their movement is a big, big story. I got a super chat, so hold on one second. Let me jump in with this because we got Pete M. Proud 999 patron. Absolutely, Pete, and thank you so much. I appreciate you being a patron and supporting this channel. And Pete is super chatting saying, don't you think we won't see Lydia Whispers and Magna's group till after 5-year skip? Maybe. I don't know. There's a couple different things of how this could play out. Now, keep in mind, this is the same person that said, I'm not giving myself credit with this. I'm the same person that kind of got picked on a little bit when I said, maybe Alpha's not Alpha right now. Remember? I said, maybe Alpha's the person flying around in a helicopter. And she doesn't go crazy mode until the second time skip. Maybe she's somebody that some people know. Yeah, Alpha could be a code, could be walkie-talkie. Hey, Charlie, this is Alpha. But that was not widely accepted because, there's people that came back with that and said, no, she's been doing it for a long time. How long, she's gotten her own group to follow her. But how do you know that? How do you know how long it takes in order to get this group that is merging with them? So, to kind of answer your question, Pete, do I think that we could see Whispers in some capacity already? Yeah. Maybe the second time skip, if the second time skip's 5 years, what we don't know is we don't know if it's going to be 5 years from right now, or 5 years from the end of the war, or 5 years from the time skip. If it's 5 years from the time skip, then you're looking at what? 3.5 years? A year and a half plus 3.5? And depending on what age they come in. You might be more along the lines of that. We might not see them until after the time skip. But they got to be out there somewhere. What do you think, Tyler? Grace is going to kill Rick? It's going to be like Chucky scene. Because of Grace. We haven't seen Grace, and so yeah. And it's going to be brutal and epic. That would be, you know what? I think that would answer all three. If Grace takes out Rick, then we have Grace, we have epic, and we have brutality. He dies saving Grace. Rick could definitely die for someone. I just see it being Negan if it's going to happen. There's only two scenarios that I see Rick dying for someone. In both cases, it's Negan. We got Big Kev, 619 from San Diego. What's up, Big Kev? And he's got like an extra like, what up? Donating for the home team. Keep up the good work. And I love you in the chat. Thank you, Big Kev. Appreciate that. Appreciate your super chat contribution, and more so appreciate you being here and being involved in what we do. So you're awesome, man. Thank you. So I'm going to go back to one of the ones that maybe or may, it could Maggie accidentally take out Rick trying to kill Negan? She could. And that does check all the boxes. I'm not saying I'm a full believer, but I think that's more believable than Rick being the cure. And let me tell you why. And this is not my theory. This has been floating around for a couple of months, and I don't even know where it came from. But wherever it came from, if it's right, then if you're listening, then congratulations. Because it's not terrible. If Maggie is driven by revenge, we know that. Rick even invited her to Alexandria and said, Judy wants to see you. And she's like, I can't do that. So everything that we've seen right now is showing Maggie more and more spiteful. We've seen Maggie and Daryl walking around with gasoline. Now hold on. This is where I'm going to ask you to believe your eyes and not your heart. Because your heart's going to tell you no. I already know this. Just let me give you the facts. Maggie hates Negan. Maggie wants Negan dead. Maggie is ramping up her hatred. Maggie and Daryl are seen with a canister of gas. We saw in the Comic-Con trailer, someone pours that gas and lights a match. It looks like the area potentially where Negan could be, so there could be an attempt on Negan's life. So all those are things that are out there. And none of those are saying that Maggie couldn't try to kill Negan. The only thing saying that couldn't happen is us. It's our common sense and what we know from the other characters or what we feel. But there will no doubt in my mind, I love that. Drama King's like, she's wasting fuel, blasphemy. There is no doubt in my mind that Rick will have a lasting impact on Negan before he leaves the show. It is the last thing that Negan needs to be accepted by the viewers. We go through different stages. We hated Negan. We've lightened up toward Negan. At some point during the season, many of you are going to feel sympathy toward Negan. Maybe not full-blown sympathy, oh, woe is me, he's had the worst life, nothing. But you're going to see him as a beaten down old man, as somebody that's talking to himself, as someone that is locked up, and then they're going to start to play on us and give us some redeeming qualities. When Negan starts to get those redeeming qualities, a couple of them, you're going to become more of a sympathizer. Many of you will. Okay, I got you on record. I've got a lot of people saying never. But I have a lot of people that were saying never a year ago, and many of those changed their mind. I have a lot of people on record saying that Dwight, never, and they changed their mind. So just never say never. He absolutely was. But that's why the writers need Rick to do something to make Negan permanently indebted to him, and where his sole mission is to help people. All right, so Matt T, Tracy Dees, Sherry Bentley, a few of the people here. Who's your favorite character on The Walking Dead? Just out of curiosity. Rick. So my question, if Rick were to forgive Negan, why would you not forgive Negan? Just curious. If Rick were to die in a brutal fashion, let's say it was a Whispers, and Rick's dying wish was to Negan. This is completely hypothetical, but Rick's last words, his last conversation, was to help keep Judy and Michonne safe. Let's just say that happened, right? Do you want the Whisperers to kill Negan at this point? Or are you going to be okay if Negan goes out there and lays his life on the line to protect Rick's legacy? Because that's what the writers have the ability to do. I understand, Sherry. Negan killed Abraham, and everybody knows. That was my motivation for the show. The story has to happen this way. I will almost guarantee it will happen in some capacity. And Tracy, that's my point. I'm playing with your emotions, but the writers are going to do that too because they have to, and it's so predictable. But it's warranted, and it's warranted because of how bad they made Negan. And now they're going to overcompensate by putting you, putting me, putting all of us in that situation where we gotta do something with Negan that shows this transformation, unlike any other transformation. Rick's going to have to hand the baton off, and Rick's going to have to accept it, and the viewers are going to have to start to accept it, and then we're going to paint this villain so evil that they're going to be the viewers are going to be begging Negan to help come to the rescue and to protect those people that we care about, Michonne and Daryl. And you know, if you see Daryl and Negan fighting side by side, it's going to lessen that impact. You're going to realize that these people can change. And it will lessen that impact. And I do think you're going to see Daryl and Negan fighting side by side. Stephanie, I think one of my mods here, I got to ask this question. Maybe you guys can help me. So, Steph, let's fast forward. And Daryl's surrounded by Whisperers. And Daryl's about to die. And Negan is the only person that can save Daryl. And if Negan does not help Daryl, you're going to lose your dirty Daryl. You want Negan to die before he gets a chance to save Daryl, and Daryl in turn dies? Is Negan going to get what he deserves, and then you lose 2 for 1? What do you mean it's not fair? The gloves are coming off. I'm giving you scenarios. You guys are giving me hardcore scenarios saying this is the way it is, it'll never change. And my job is just to give you some other situations that put you in that gray area. Drama King's like, just let him go. I'm asking the questions because I know there are ways the story can be written to manipulate us. It happens all the time. And the reason I can do this for each of you is because I did it. I'm the same way. I will never watch 7-1 again. I hate it. I can't stand it. I can't stand Negan in 7-1. But here's the thing. You don't have to like Negan in 7-1. You don't have to like the Negan from 7-6. You don't have to even like the Negan from 7-10. But in 7-16, and actually 7-14, I think, was the Rapey Davy scene, you started to see a different side of Negan. And the Negan in 7-14 was different than the Negan in 7-1. And then the Negan in 7-16 that was looking like he was going to hug Rick and he wasn't going to kill him and Rick cut his throat is a different Negan than was in 7-1. The Negan that killed Simon because Simon murdered all those people at the junkyard is different. So that's the part that I had to sort of understand is I will never forgive the Negan that killed Abraham. But I'm not sure that the Negan in season 9 is the same person. And he won't be the same person because he's going to be a person that is going to be standing toe to toe. When Daryl turns around, Negan's not going to stab Daryl in the back. When Daryl turns around, Negan's going to be back to back with him, killing whispers. And I think when we see that take place visually, it's going to gradually wear on us a little bit. But before that happens, Daryl is not going to fight side by side with Negan. You know that and I know that. So it has to happen in stages. In order for Daryl to accept Negan, Rick has to have some epic moment. And in my mind, and it could be wrong, if Maggie were to try to kill Negan and Rick were to die in some mishap or some weird sort of way, I think Maggie would be done killing. I think she would have to leave. I think she would be so emotionally destroyed, she'd have to get away. And it would open the door for her to come back. And this is where, as I said, we got to take our heart out of the equation. So which scenario provides an exit for Andrew Lincoln and an exit for Lauren Cohan? Why is Maggie leaving in 6? Not, why, we know she has another job. Give me a scenario where Maggie leaves, where Maggie has to leave, where Maggie needs to get away. And I'm not sure I'm 100% sold on this theory. I heard it a long time ago, and we obviously have other things, but I'm not saying it's inconceivable. And in fact, Maggie accidentally killing Rick jumping in the way and dying for Negan is much more believable to me than Rick jumping on a helicopter with people we don't even know who they are. My heart tells me I want him to get on a helicopter and live. My mind tells me Lauren's leaving right after Rick. Why is she going to leave? What would cause her to leave in the very next episode after Andrew leaves? Well, Charles, the problem is it has to be related to Rick. So Rick's going to leave and Maggie's going to leave? That seems a little difficult, doesn't it? I mean, does anybody think it's just too coincidental? Once again, this is not a heart question, it's a head question. How many people think it's too coincidental that Rick leaves and it's open-ended and Maggie leaves and it's open-ended? I got to know. Because I feel like I'm fired up tonight. Do I sound like I'm fired up? Like there's some passion here? Way too coincidental, right? So how many people think it's more believable that Rick dies and there is some danger or some guilt, one or the other, you can pick either one, that causes Maggie to leave? That Maggie's exit is a byproduct, is a direct result of what happened to Rick. Either by watching Rick die and she's got to flee with Herschel for protection, or by the mistake that she made and she's got to leave. Julie says she got him killed. Guilt. I mean, either one. I think either one of those scenarios plays into the story. And Kirby, she may leave with Georgie, but then the question I have to go back to is why? Why is someone, and let me get back to this in 1 second because we got a super chat I want to address, and this is Nazar N says Rick sacrifices for Maggie and Daryl, or Nick sacrifices for Maggie, and Daryl gets surrounded. Too many walkers. Rick jumps to the rescue, gets surrounded by walkers, gets torn apart. He will see Shane instead of Daryl, who ends Rick. Very possible. But the only thing I would question with that theory, it's not a bad theory, but what the impact for Negan is and what the impact for Maggie is. So if Rick were to sacrifice for Maggie, one would think this would be Maggie's storyline. So let's just go with Nazar's super chat. Rick jumps in, he sacrifices for Maggie. If you're Maggie, you got one of two choices. Oh my God, that could have been me. I'm packing up Herschel and I'm going to GTFO. Or you could say, man, that was a valiant effort. That was awesome. I need to keep leading the hilltop. And you know what? To honor Rick, I'm going to merge all these communities together and I'm going to do a better job of living on Rick's legacy. Wouldn't that make a little bit more sense? If Rick just gave his life for Maggie, that she would feel obligated and want to change her leadership style and spare Negan and do a lot of things a little bit differently. So that's the only reason I would push back against that. But if Rick were to die for Negan, it accomplishes so much more on the show. It redeems Negan. It indebts whoever Rick dies for owes him something. Has the obligation, in my mind, of fulfilling his legacy. And what better way to handcuff Negan and to take the doubt out of every viewer's mind? It's like, he's up to something. He's planning something. Because we're going to be doing that forever. If it's not done in a big way, we're always going to be second guessing why did he put the bat down there? Oh, Negan's up to something. And the writers can't do that. I mean, because it won't advance the Whisperer storyline, always wondering which side is Negan on. I don't know that the viewers can emotionally go through that again. Not now. A few years from now, if Negan got power hungry again, then who knows? Crystal, Singer Chick Gore says, what if Maggie is the one to betray Rick by trying to kill Negan with the fire and Rick tries to save him and gets killed and then she leaves? Crystal, that's exactly what we're saying. So I think it solves every open-ended storyline that we have right now. Rick would be dead. Negan would get some opportunity to do the right thing. Maggie would have to leave. She wouldn't be able to deal with the backlash. She would not be able to deal. Michonne might exile her. Imagine how that would go down. You talk about a shift in power. If Maggie accidentally killed Rick and Michonne showed her mercy and said, I'm going to give you about 5 minutes to pack your stuff and get out before I kill you myself. I mean, that would be epic, right? It would be brutal. It would be epic. And it would also be graceful. I mean, those are 3 things that Gimple is talking about. So I think it encompasses everything. Now, if it's not the fire scene, if it's not Maggie trying to kill Negan, let's just say I really think episode 5 is going to be an edge-of-your-seat thriller. And what I mean by that is I think we're going to, for the most part, know that Negan is transitioning over to a protagonist, that he's going to demonstrate some good qualities. But I think that episode 5 is going to be very Negan got out. How did Negan get out? What's he doing? I think it's going to be very dark. It's going to be filmed at night. I think you're going to see a little bit of that rain that we saw. You're going to see Lucille. There's going to be what the Saviors are doing. Did they break him out? It's going to be like all these questions, like in rapid fire. And then they're surrounded. And what do they do? And I think Rick is going to end up making, if the Maggie thing does not go down on that night, and that could be the night that she wants to kill Negan. She's had enough. Or it could be, which I think is more viable, I'm going to get to that in 1 second. Jeremiah Lawson with a super chat question says, isn't the time jump between 5 and 6? Not that I'm aware of. I think the time jump is after 6 and it's after Maggie leaves, is what I've heard. So I think a stronger possibility and a stronger theory than just the Maggie situation. I'm going to give you 2 scenarios. Maggie leaves because of guilt, because something happened with Rick trying to save Negan. Or we've got this, I'll try to kind of put you in the mode a little bit. Like I'm a storyteller and we're sitting around this fire, Ezekiel and Carol. So, it's dark. You've got that rain going. Negan got out of his cage. Something's going down. They've been moving these walkers. Remember, they've been herding these walkers back and forth. And these groups are growing massive. But then Negan gets himself in a spot. And Rick sacrifices himself to save Negan. And just like that script, where they see Rick getting surrounded, and Daryl and Michonne and Maggie all see that Rick just gave his life to save his worst enemy. Because that's exactly what Carl would have wanted to happen. Carl would have wanted this peaceful vibe. And Maggie, along the lines, says, I'm not going to kill you, but I can't be around you. Something like that, like typical Maggie. And that gives Maggie a reason to leave. That now Daryl and Michonne's vision is to get all these communities together, and Maggie can't be a part of that because she just can't let it go. She wants to, but she can't let it go. So she has to leave. I think that catapults Negan. I think it kills Rick, and it also gives Maggie an exit strategy. So what is epic about that? I think there's a lot that could be epic about that. I think the kind of heart-racing nature of the final scene, but I think not only that, but a Rick death. What if, oh boy, I'm about to give you guys okay, I know when I can do it. I'm about to give you guys the cold chills here. I'm about to make it more epic. What if Rick is bitten, saving Negan? And we're talking about that flash distortion where he's seeing the past and he's seeing the future. And he actually is not quite turned, but he walks over to embrace Negan as like one of his final acts. I mean, would that not blow your mind if that was, I mean, that moment between turning and not turning, when his eyes are just kind of going, his last situation is to show that all's forgiven. It's over. Then at that point, you got to let it go. I would have to let it go at that point. The man's willing to give his life for his worst enemy. Imagine the impact on Negan. And Negan would not be able to put him down. Just mixing it up tonight. See, that's how we do. Oh, wow. We have hit an hour and 6 minutes. I mean, it flew by tonight. So, and I think we did a good job tonight with kind of getting all those elements. So I didn't want to make it complete spoilers. Wanted to take some of the information we knew and start to wind it in to some of the things that we're talking about. It's going to be an emotional episode. There's no doubt about it that there's only one way this can play out. And we've got, I think, viably 5 different scenarios at this point. And it's not going to be all 5. But I will say, it's got to be one of them. I mean, I think we're getting close. We're just going to need to see a few more details to sort of hash it out. A little bit more personality, a little bit more dialogue, see how dark Maggie becomes, see what Daryl's real motives are. I mean, there's some characters that are still manipulating this plot. And we got Shane Hudson super chatting. So I think Judy gets hurt by Maggie accidentally while trying to get to Negan. That could make Maggie see her ways and bring people together. Shane, the role of Judy and the role of Herschel, it could still definitely factor into that as well. And that's what I'm going to need to see a little bit more of. I think after this week and then getting some of the information for next week, I feel like by next week, we're going to have this thing nailed down. And Lisa, you're absolutely right. This is, I think they have no choice but to play with our emotions. Because we're so invested in Rick. A lot of people are invested in Negan. And keep in mind, not everybody hates Negan. There's a lot of sympathizers out there that are okay with who he is. And they don't need as much of it. But there's a good portion of the audience that is going to need the writers to really push this hardcore in order to get us back on that page. So we got one more super chat. We got Jimmy's Jammin'. So Kills, what's up with good Father G's blue eye? Could he have a type of immunity to the Walker virus? So many ways to approach that, Jimmy. If you ask Father G, he'd probably say it was divine intervention. The fact that he's blind and it didn't get into his bloodstream and it didn't turn him, I don't know. I can't give you I think a good sound solution to that. Like, what's the difference between if you had a cut and Walker blood got into it, if you got in your eye? There's been scenes where people were slashing and I'm sure blood went in their mouth. I don't know. I don't know all the elements, and I don't know that there's an answer at this point, and I don't know that Robert Kirkman wants there to be an answer. There are some inconsistencies with what makes you turn. And I think it's a good question, but I don't think it's a question that any of us could really answer with full certainty. Sorry, that's as truthful and as direct as I can possibly be. Appreciate that, though. We're going to wind this thing down. Otherwise, we will do these streams for 2 hours or 3 hours or 4 hours. I mean, time just absolutely flies. I want to thank everybody here. If you guys could do me a big favor. We've been so involved in the stream, we haven't even hit the like button. Everybody here, do me a big favor. If you had a good time tonight, if you like hanging out with us, if you like sitting by this fireside chat that we do almost every night, then hit the like button. And if you didn't like what we did tonight, hit the dislike button. Give it a thumbs down if you didn't have a good time. We've combined some spoilers, some predictions, some hypotheticals. And if you're new to our stream, you're going to get that almost every stream. And we will mix it up from time to time. And I think that's the fun of the show. Remember, the show is about the personalities. It's about the relationships, and it's about the psychology. And I think we encapsulate all of those into one big stream. So appreciate everybody being here tonight. I'm going to do some shout outs. You're brand new. Let me give a special thanks to all the patrons that are out there that support this channel. You guys are absolutely amazing. Appreciate everything you do. And as I said earlier, brand new Patreon from yesterday, Vicky Jack. Appreciate that. And also all the sponsors you can see in the top right hand corner. Appreciate all of you guys. The moderators, Emmy, Steph, Tommy, Kells. And tonight, a lot of super chat activity. So I want to thank the people who were super chatting it up. And of course, we got a shout out going to Valar. And I don't have access to all of the super chatters from tonight. So there were a lot of them. So I want to thank each and every person. I remember Valar right off the bat and several of the others. But YouTube is not being kind to me right now and providing my list. So, oh well. Don't give me a thumbs down because of YouTube. There's some technical difficulties on their back end with some numbers kind of crunching up. To those of you that are watching the playback, if you guys want to check out, you're free to go ahead and take off because all we're going to do now is shout outs. And if you guys could do me a favor, give me a whole bunch of 999s, and I want to shout out as many people as we possibly can. So I want to say what's up to Rob King, also to Real Life Bass Fishing, Alex Reyes, thank you, June Smith, Cruise Mama 99, Gamma. I saw a lot of faces here tonight that have missed a couple streams, so appreciate having most of the crew back tonight. I know there's some other people that couldn't make it, but it's like some people are here one night, some people catch the playback. Kimberly G, thank you. Pete M, Shane Hassan, Andrea T, Samantha Coombs, Kirby Hughes, Mock Studios, DJ Damstadt, Laura Mill, Lisa, Julie McGuire, The Walking Dead Nerd, Jimmy's Jammin', Tommy V, Gina Crockett, Sheila Mack, Deborah Cox. Have a good night. Bumblebee Brown, Chris Riddle, Tracy Dees. Thank you so much, Tracy. Geese 24. Storm 3851. Daniel Castro, thank you. Have a good night as well. Janet Person, Teresa Neese, Shane Yutzi, Michael Curie, thank you. Have a good night, man. Trevor Koenig, Quartz Skull Gamer, have a good night, man. eBeach 72, have a good night, Cammy, thank you. Fanjits, what's up, man? Good to see you. Gaming buddies in the house. Thanks for being here, Vengeance. Appreciate it, man. Denise Stanley, have a good night. Uncle Creepy. I like to fish. The 12-inch dwarf of the wild. Thank you, man. Have a good night. Appreciate you being here. Penny for your thoughts. Wow, Julie, that's a lot of 999 emojis. Thanks so much, Julie. Thanks, Madison. Appreciate you being here. Ron Burgundy Moore, Ziglet. Hey, thanks so much, Uncle Creepy. Appreciate it, man. And, you know, I know we get some random interaction, and, you know, I try to call on as many people as I can, but keep in mind, even if what you post is not the conversation topic, because we do jump around a little bit, There's a lot of people watching the playback. They will see your comments. They appreciate your comments. They like the interaction. And it's not only me. A lot of times your comments are answered by other people. So just awesome stuff. I see some of the dialogue back and forth, and it just keeps it going. So if somebody is watching the playback, you guys get a chance, get over and comment on their comments because they're watching what we say and also what we type. Crystal Singer Chick, thank you so much. Have a good night. Rhonda DeLuca, appreciate it. All right. We're not going to do outtakes tonight only because it's been an hour and 15 minutes. If we end the stream a little bit earlier tomorrow, we'll hang out and chill and do a little bit of overtime chat. Thanks, everybody. I'll talk to you all tomorrow night at 9:30. See you then. Peace.